Hello again YouTube, my name is Bree, and in today's video I'm going to start with a little unboxing before continuing on to the next several paintings in my Birdtober series. Now if you missed the last video, Birdtober is a daily painting challenge in October where I am painting 31 birds in my teeny tiny little 1.5 by 1.5 sketchbook. And my friend Spofgh, who spoils the heck out of me, sent me a little gift to aid in my Birdtober challenge, or just because it's adorable and she wanted me to have one, or I don't know, maybe she's challenging me. But yeah, it's the smallest palette I have ever seen and it is super cute. I imagine this extremely hard to work with in a much larger painting, but for these tiny birds it is so perfect. So it's 10 wells, and then the two parts connect closed or open like that through magnets, and so you could clip it onto a sketchbook if you are traveling, do a little plein air. It's just a really clever idea, but obviously there's not much space, so it would be good for like pen and wash or working really tiny like I am. So for this video I thought I would show the unboxing, the filling of the palette, just so you could see how difficult it is to fill these tiny wells, because I'm imagining that's a common concern, and yeah, it's difficult for me. And then also you can see my bucket of shame of when I say I have too many paints, this is what I'm talking about. Look at that, there's just too many paints, and these are just my tubes. So yeah, definitely don't need more paint, definitely want more paint though. And yeah, after that, we'll try out the small palette on my next 4 days of Birdtober. And so I will go through that with my Bree's Bad Bird Facts when we get to that section of the video. So yeah, this is going to be a little chaotic video. I'll try to remember to put timestamps in the description below so you could hop around or skip ahead if you're not interested in this part. I will admit that my selection of paints was not like well planned. It is just completely impulse. I pulled out a bunch of paints, broke them into split primary, and then pulled a couple of paints for the last two wells. So I was kind of deciding between a brown, a dark gray, and a green for the bonus wells, and then the split primary for the rest. Very quickly I remembered I don't have like a cool yellow, like a lemon yellow in my collection in my tubes, so I instead went with green gold because it was really the only option for me. But yeah, we'll just get right into it. The first color is Core's Quinacridone Gold, and that is PO 48 and PY I think 150, so it's just a really good Quin gold. I really like Core's colors. They're bright colors for being so vibrant, and just they flow really well on paper. Yeah, this one's a complete mess. The second one, like I said, I didn't have a cool yellow, so I went with Core's Green Gold, which is PY 129, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it makes really good green mixes, which is what I really needed from my cool yellow, which isn't really yellow. The next two are, well, the rest of them are all Daniel Smith. So the warm red is my Pyrrole Red, and that is just such a juicy paint. It's always hard to pour out of the tube. That's PR 254. And for the cool red, I chose Quinacridone Gold, though I did struggle, and I made myself not go with alizarin crimson because I'm painting birds, and I knew that vibrant pink might come in handy. So the Quin Gold is PV 19. The blues, I'm kind of regretting my decision here. I went with Daniel Smith Indanthrone Blue, which is PB 60. Now, I love PB 60 in general, but I've gotten so used to Schmincke's, which is so vibrant. Daniel Smith's is a lot more neutral, dark and moodier, so it wasn't quite what I was thinking I was getting. Like I said, impulse, not really planning ahead. So yeah, I'm already making a huge mess of my hands too. So yeah, not quite what I was expecting. When I run out, I'll probably refill that with French Ultramarine. For the cool blue, I went with Phthalo Turquoise, and that is the decision I'm very glad I made. That is PB 15.3 and PG 36. So that one's not a single pigment from Daniel Smith, but it's working out really well for me. The Quin the green gold and the phthalo turquoise make such a beautiful variety of greens, and they've been really helpful for this challenge. Then for the last two, I went with two of Daniel Smith's Primatech line. They're genuine paints, so we have Piemontite and Sodalite. So this is another area where I would change that in the future. The Piemontite is one of my favorite paints, so I would definitely keep it. It's a really gorgeous brown that leans red, especially as you water it down more. And then the Sodalite, it's a really good, rich, cool black, but it's heavily granulating, and I think I would have just benefited more from having like a neutral tint in this little palette. So just, it's all personal preference, but for me, I think that's what I'll do in the future. So here I just made a quick little swatch card just so I can have a point of reference, and also you can get a better look at what I filled it with. The little card itself was just like one of those tiny sample cards from, what is that brand? I'm going to feel really bad now that I can't remember. But yeah, it's just a tiny little sample pad. And so it's probably not the best reference. It is cellulose though. And since I'm using a cellulose sketchbook, the sketchbook being Bockingford Watercolor Paper, I just thought that would be a better comparison than using cotton paper. So yeah, I've actually never worked with watercolor like fresh out of the tube like this. So I just didn't know how really to... I didn't want to pull up too much paint, so I'm a little bit more hesitant. And the first bird I'm actually painting while they're still wet as well. So a little outside my comfort zone here. But yeah, those yellows, I'm very happy with those two in this palette. They're just perfection. I still miss my alizarin crimson. I wish I didn't like alizarin crimson so much, but Quinacridone Rose was definitely the right choice for painting birds because yeah, a lot of birds have pink feathers. And the Pyro Red, just gotta have a good warm red, and that is pretty much like my default warm red pigment is PR 254. So like I said, the Indian Throne, not my best pick. It's a beautiful blue, but for painting some birds where they're really vibrant, like a good example is a scrub jay, a Florida scrub jay, which I do paint in this video. It just wasn't quite the right color. It could have just... I mean, it's not like an indigo. It's not that dark and moody, but it still leaves a little bit to be desired. And after they dry, you'll see the granulation in both the Piemontite and the Sodalite, which is absolutely beautiful. But yeah, the Sodalite can just be a little tricky to work with because sometimes you put it down and it dries down so much that it's like really faint, and then other times it comes out so black, and you water it down just a little bit and it just starts granulating everywhere. So for working in a really tiny scale, it's being a little finicky for me. So yeah, those are the colors I went with, and I will, like I said, I'll be trading them out in the future. So the first bird I'm painting in this video is the wood stork. The prompt for this one was swamp or marsh, and the reality of it is, as a reminder, I'm painting local birds for my area. Pretty much all of the local birds from my area are swamp and marsh dwelling birds because, you know, I live in Florida, and yeah, we're basically a big swamp and marsh, so it pretty much opened me up to paint any bird. But because I'd done so many herons last year and I don't want to be repainting the same birds again, I didn't really have many of my little leggy bird friends left, and so I realized I've never painted a wood stork. Now, wood storks are a little creepy looking. They have beautiful white plumage down their backs, but their heads are kind of like bald and scaly, heads, neck, and legs, in a way that's actually pretty similar to are vultures. So they're not the most beautiful looking birds, and I have to say the whole thing, like when you're a kid, they tell you babies are delivered by storks. I never understood that concept because these dudes are a little creepy. If one of those came by with a baby, it would not be a happy moment, I don't think. But yeah, I had a lot of fun painting this. This one went really quickly for me. This palette just was perfect for what I wanted to do, and I think it took me 25 minutes to paint. So a couple quick facts about the wood stork. They are very tall birds, 3 to 3.5 feet tall, and they have a 5 to 5.5 foot wingspan, so a little smaller than some of our other birds like the crane, but quite on par with herons or our larger herons. They were formerly called a wood ibis because of their resemblance, especially in the face and the beak, to the ibis, but they're not even remotely related. They nest in colonies, so it'll be a bunch of them together nesting and raising their children. And their mating season begins basically when water recedes. It's not a definite triggering point in like time of year. It's more about the water levels receding, because they do live in these swampy, marshy environments, and they have to wait for the water, whether it be a river or pond or whatever, wherever they are, to recede down to about 6 to 10 inches, and they build their nest right there. So I thought that was a little interesting. It was something I wasn't used to hearing, more about the environment, rather than just, I mean, I guess it's still environment when it's a time of year because it's usually a temperature trigger, but it was just a little different. So yeah, I see these guys pretty frequently around town, and in the neighborhood. They pretty much keep themselves. But yeah, when you get up close and you really look at them, more in pictures because they don't let you up close to them in person, they kind of do have creepy little skull-like faces. So we'll just say it was very fitting for Halloween. couldn't not draw one this year. So that's pretty much all I have for this guy. Like I said, this palette just really made this particular painting really easy. Granted, it's white and black, so having the white of the paper and that really bold, sort of like genuine, it just worked perfectly for this particular one. And the granulation helped a little bit, giving it that scaly texture I was going for in the face and legs. The background, I'm obsessed with the greens between that phthalo and the phthalo turquoise and the green gold. I just wasn't sure that was going to work like I was hoping, and it was perfect. So really excited about that. And I really do love adding like little pops of color and white feathers. It's just so much fun because you can kind of get away with whatever to some extent. So the second bird, I think this is day 5 in Birdtober. The prompt was locally threatened, and I knew right away I was going to do a Florida scrub jay. Not only are they locally threatened, they're endemic to Florida, and only a couple areas here, so they are globally threatened. Their IUCN status is vulnerable. So these birds they're a jay, and like their name implies, they live in scrub-like environments. And obviously they suffer from the completely expected, like every other animal, habitat fragmentation, habitat destruction because people move in. And yeah, development hurts the local animals, especially when they have a very, very specific environment they choose to live in. So beyond the general habitat destruction, they had a very unusual cause of decline, which maybe it's not that unusual, it was just surprising to me, and that's fire suppression. So obviously, as more people move in, you want to protect the environment and keep it from, having massive forest fires. So they develop techniques to help suppress fires to ensure the land and homes are not at risk. Well, essentially what that did in the case of the scrub jay is it actually turns their scrubby environments into a lot more lush and tall forest, and that doesn't work for how they live. It's just not the most suitable environment. So by knocking back these fires and protecting these forests and letting them grow more, it's actually hurting these birds. They also tend to live by areas that now have roads, so they are also at risk of being hit by cars just by nature of living next to roads. And they're also super friendly, which means people look for them, and when they sometimes, the birds will land on them. There's so many pictures of like a Florida scrub jay sitting on someone's head or on their hands, and it's really sweet. But when people get excited, they tend to, especially if they're not really into birds and understanding their needs, they feed them, and then those birds become dependent on being fed by humans and less likely to hunt for themselves. So even though they're friendly and cute, don't feed wild animals, because always remember that they have to learn to fend for themselves. Now, I think all sites say something a little different, but what I saw was we have an estimated 4,000 of these birds left. So like I said, they're still listed as very vulnerable. And that's down like 90% since the last century. So poor little guys. I don't really feel I captured this bird precisely, and I did go back and touch up the painting a little bit after I did stop filming, because like I forgot the blue glaze on its head. I was going to actually go back to my other palette to get a more vibrant blue. Like I said, the Indian Throne really wasn't working for this particular bird, but I totally forgot. And I just had to fix it the next day, and I didn't change palettes either. So yeah, that's the Florida Scrub Jay. A little... When was it? When is it? There's another bird I'm painting for the prompt Extinct, and that one really saddened me because I didn't know. Well, I looked up. I'm trying to paint local Florida birds. So when I looked up extinct bird Florida, I didn't really expect to find one that actually was local. And so reading the story about how the dusky seaside sparrow went extinct back in the 80s really like just further pushed the fact that, you know, these birds not only at risk, but we could definitely lose them. And just making me really bummed out. There is a move to make the Florida Scrub Jay our state bird. Our state bird is currently the northern mockingbird, which is a state bird in numerous states. So it's not really unique. And I really hope they do, because it just brings more awareness to the birds. Okay, so now you can see it finished with his blue head. And actually, I kind of like how it kind of has a vintage quality to it. Just maybe I think it's just the color palette. I like how he came out in the long run, even if it didn't feel the most Scrub Jay. So the next bird on my list, the prompt is Cavity Nester, and I drew a Carolina Wren. So these birds don't get this round in Florida because we don't get heavy winters, so it doesn't get that cold. They don't chunk up that much, but I haven't painted a round bird recently, and they're so cute. So I definitely took a rounder picture as my reference photo. And yeah, I really, round birds are adorable. So the Carolina Wren will basically, as the whole cavity nester theme implies, they nest in cavities. Cavities typically for birds are going to be like holes in trees or burrows in the ground, but the Carolina Wren will pretty much nest in like any cavity it can find. So people often find them in like their garage, in their car's tailpipe, in the spare tire on the back of their car. And I even saw multiple sites mention shoes. I guess if you leave shoes outside, they'll nest in that too. So apparently these guys you'll find anywhere. I normally see them in bushes, not so much in shoes, but I also don't leave my shoes outside. One thing that I thought was kind of cute was that pairings of these birds will perform duets together. So they're definitely little singers. They're not great at thriving in developed areas, and that's because since they live close to the ground, they nest sometimes in the ground, and they forage in the ground. Basically, if there's a place with like a lot of outdoor cats, dogs, other little critters that are on the ground, it both limits their ability to find food and increases the number of predators. So they do much better in non-developed areas, though obviously, like I said, they'll make a nest anywhere, so they could find a home. It just might not be the safest home. Now, for some reason, I really struggled painting this one, and I think this was just, I was tired this night, so he was a little tricky for me, but I still think he's kind of cute. I like his yellow belly, or yellowish belly. It's pretty yellow. So yeah, like I said, these are tiny birds. They're about 5.5 inches tall at their maximum size, so they're really small, really cute. I really like them. I know I went back and forth several times with the tail. I still think this one went really quickly for me. I think of these, the Scrub Jay took the longest. Most of the others were like 25 to 35 minutes to do. So I'm doing pretty well at keeping to my time, my little self-imposed time limit, just because, yeah, I'm busy. I can't spend hours each day painting. I gotta go to work. I gotta take care of the house. Gotta take care of my sick kitty, who just does an update. She's doing well enough. Her tumor has not grown in size, so that's awesome. But she's just having some other little tummy problems lately, so she needs a little extra care, and we had a bit extra cleaning around the house, but we're taking care of it. Anything for my girl. I unfortunately have not worked more on my painting of her because I've been, diving one challenge to the next. I finished the gouache painting class. I was doing the Bridgman boot camp still doing that once a week. I'm on session 7 now, and now Birdtober, so I really need to refocus my priorities and paint my Maggie. So yeah, I should be finishing up with this one in just a moment, and the last one should be pretty quick too. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into talking about the next bird, because we'll be there any moment now. So the last bird I painted today was for the prompt. Excuse me, throat's getting a little dry. Was the free choice prompt. So every week there's one free choice just to mix it up and let you paint whatever bird you want. And for the first week, I painted the black-necked stilt. Wow, excuse me. Okay, I'm tired. It's been a long day, a long weekend. Not a long enough weekend. Not that kind of long weekend. So the black-necked stilt is, as its name implies, it's a very leggy bird. Like, I wanted to focus on the look of the bird, so I cut off its legs. Well, that sounded really mean. I cropped its legs off. Still sounds mean somehow. But yeah, these guys have super long legs, and you could kind of see that by how far down his knees are. So these birds are, I believe, summer dwellers in Florida. I think they still go further south for mating, or at least my area, Florida. So we only see them in the summer. And the first time I saw one, I was so surprised and confused. I went back home and I told my husband I found a bird that looks like an orca whale. And then I stupidly tried to Google it as bird that looks like an orca whale and did not find it. An orca? I don't know why I keep saying orca whale. And I finally figured out what it was, and for a while this was like my favorite local bird. It was just such a bizarre little bird, and the markings are so close to an orca that I just don't know how that happened. It even has the white around behind the eye. It's just really strange to me, and I'm charmed by them, and they're super long legs. So these are, the birds themselves aren't that tall, but with the legs they stand about 15 inches tall. So they're really bizarre looking in person. They prefer freshwater wetlands, which is precisely where I live. And they are easily provoked during nesting season. So basically they will circle the nesting site and yell kip kip noises. But that part I don't see because, like I said, they don't actually nest here. But yeah, we'll just see them walking around their local little waterways or retention ponds. And like I said, they're just adorable to me. So I didn't really find that many facts about them, or I got tired and that was all I wrote down. It's been, like I said, very busy with doing Birdtober and just general house stuff this weekend, and I'm tired. Luckily, I'd filmed most of these last week, so I didn't have to rush to film something as well. After this one, I basically stopped filming just because it got to the point where like I said, with my cat being under the weather, it's a lot easier for me just to sit out in the living room and keep an eye on her, and then she tends to curl up on my lap. And with this tiny little palette and a tiny little sketchbook, I could just hold it really easily and paint with her in my lap, sitting on the couch watching TV. We've been watching Better Call Saul, and yeah, it's been a relaxing way to end my days. Some days are a little stressful. It's just one more thing you got to get done every day, but most of the time I'm enjoying it. I like looking up the birds and learning about them as well. So with that all being said, that's all I got for this video. I hope you're doing really well, taking care of yourselves, and I will see you sometime next month. Bye.